Hello, welcome. My name's Melissa Newman of Rising Strong Holistic Healing. I'm an end-of-life consultant and I'm here today talking on this channel about how we can triumph over tragedy, find the divine wisdom from our experiences to help us move through the experiences with a little bit more ease, with learnings and insights, growth and healing. But it's not always easy to navigate through difficult circumstances in life. And one of those circumstances would be grief and loss. For me at the time, it was probably where I was tested the most in strength and courage and will, and being able to move from that experience. And so I guess I love bringing forth my wisdom learnings, but also in my work, I can see it time and time again that I wasn't so different from anyone else moving through grief. Never the same, but we all have experienced the same devastation. So today I want to talk about that because I feel it is an important topic, because all of us will at some point in life experience some kind of challenge. Some of them can be greater than others, the challenges that is. And the thing that I feel is really important is if we're unable to find meaning and reason from our experience, we can often fall into the story of victimhood. And that story can look like, why me? Why did this happen to me? And getting lost in that story, opposed to looking at it from a different perspective, a higher perspective of what can I learn from this experience, and what is it teaching me. And so my objective with this topic is to dive a little deeper in this, sharing some of my lived experience and what it looked like for me to be able to triumph over tragedy, tragedy being grief and loss, the death of my son. And I guess the goal would be that you are given a little bit of courage to be able to look at maybe your circumstances. If you're going through something challenging at this moment in time, you might be able to draw upon a higher wisdom from your experience to help you move through it and out of it. So we'll dive straight in. Thank you for being here. And I guess I'm going to start with AMOR FATI. It's a Latin phrase that I grew attached to because it had quite a lot of meaning. It became more meaningful later in the years after having traversed the grief and loss for a few years. I had come across it before in my early years, but it just seemed to really have a stronger meaning later in life. Could be for whatever reason, whatever I might have been going through. What is amor fati? Well, it's a beautiful Latin phrase. I'm going to refer to my notes so I don't muddle it up. It's a philosophical concept of stoicism by Friedrich Nietzsche. Now, I hope I said that correct. Which means basically to be a lover of our fate. It describes an attitude of accepting and embracing, even loving everything that happens in life, including suffering and loss, as something necessary and ultimately good. And I can actually say I agree to that, as in the death of my son. I wouldn't say it was necessary as such, I guess. Is it necessary that someone has to die? Oh, we could go down a rabbit hole on that one. But it was definitely good because I'm grateful for that experience. And the practice of amor fati involves focusing on what we can control, being our attitudes and our reactions to our experiences, rather than focusing on anything that we can't control. So thereby transforming transforming our obstacles into opportunity for growth and peace. So I'm referring, I don't know whether I said that or not, but I'm referring to my notes from my speech, my talk in community last weekend. So, from ashes we rise. October 2017 was a day in my life that changed me forever. Brett Cameron, my son, age 24, died by suicide. Many people, or people that do know me and follow me by now, kind of know that story. But I repeat it just because there are always new people coming to the channel to learn and grow as well. So there's plenty of us, I'm sure, if you found this particular video, might be now moving through grief and loss. You could have been in this space now for a couple of years or longer. Doesn't really matter. But one thing that I want to acknowledge is that as devastating as it feels at the time, I want you to know that life can and does return. And for me, I reached a place of a lot of gratitude, deep, deep gratitude for the experience. Now, I have said this time and time again because I'm 8 years along my journey, and I honestly, with my heart, if I would turn back time, if it could have been done a different way, well, yeah, I would say I would always choose to have my son here. But what I'm trying to say is that even despite the most tragic experiences, it can have the most profound change upon us as individuals for our own lives, where we become better people. Not that I was a bad person before that, but yeah. So that journey, I am extremely grateful for. I'm not saddened and deeply distressful 8 years down the track. I talk about this because it's really important, because I wasn't always this way. In the early years, even 3 years, like I still had, I guess, levels of sadness, but I don't experience that anymore. I really don't. And I believe it comes down to a conscious choice. I am a person that is driven, and I am a person that has always been resilient. And this has actually gifted me, this one experience has gifted me my life, but not for me only, because what it's done is created a ripple effect and put me into a position where I can actually help others. And that's the beauty of it. When we can triumph over tragedy, we can actually turn our experiences into something very deep and profound and meaningful for the highest good of all. And this is where some of the spirituality comes in, because what we tend to do, and what I'm finding over this time, is that many people that go through grief and loss will go through a profound spiritual awakening. And in that experience, because we're so driven to understand the existence of life, our existence within life, and we generally want to understand, is there an afterlife? And so it really puts us on this really deep journey of personal growth to understand then all of our life experiences. For me, divorce, and different experiences of trauma as a child. And so it really actually healed me on more than one level. And so whilst there are people that would disagree, that they wouldn't feel grateful for the experience of loss, I respect that, because I understand it takes time to move through the journey, but I believe for those who make the choice to find meaning and reason and have a very deep, profound growth and healing and enlightenment, as in divine wisdom from their experience, you can actually look back with deep gratitude. It doesn't mean that we don't, that we've forgotten our loved ones. It's furthest from the truth. If anything, it's actually enhanced a different communication. It's just a different communication because my son communicates to me. So he's not here physically before my eyes, but he is here. And this experience, I could go on, I guess, and this is where I'll probably just stop at this point, but it really does have a profound, or can have a profound impact on our lives, and for the better, because we turn our sorrow and loss into compassionate action. So anyway, moving forward, whilst it wasn't always that way, it is now 8 years down the track. But what actually took place, to go back and try to explain kind of how I got through that journey, I guess I've got to go back to the dark night of the soul, that one moment. The journey, as I now see it and understand it, is the journey through the deep, deep journey of darkness, through grief and through mourning. It felt like at the time utter devastation in my life. There is no words like the pain that I just cannot describe it. Anyone say, like, I can look back now and say I've seen other family members pass away, but that depth of pain, it's phenomenal. It's so much utter despair and sorrow and anger, and it's just everything, every emotion, and every emotion comes and it goes and it comes and it goes, and then the anger comes back, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's not like it's something that you can switch off and get over, because what I learned is those emotions have to be felt and moved through. You have to sit with it and just be with it and be okay with whatever it is that you're experiencing emotionally and physically. So the utter emptiness, and so through that experience, there was also emotions of shame and blame. But the shame, actually, in my experience, wasn't from me. I didn't feel shame. The shame was directed towards me through community because of loss to suicide. And so that silenced a lot of my grief, because I found very quickly I couldn't talk openly about I couldn't express my emotions. And so it was the greatest test of strength and resilience. It really was, that I'd ever had to endure. And there were moments, and it's really important to talk about this, because when I spoke about this again last week, it actually, there was someone in the audience that literally came up to me and said, "Me too." So it's really important that I'm honest and upfront with what I'm about to say. With those thoughts of me not wanting to be here, where I'd considered, what if I too took my life? That's the suicide ideation. And any one of us in this, whether it's grief, loss, or what have you, whenever there's hardship, we have those fleeting thoughts. That's actually normal. But most often, they're not. They're fleeting thoughts. In the moment when we're in that despair because we want to get out of the pain, that looks like an answer. But in reality, it's not going to happen. But it does happen. And it is common when suicide is experienced within a family that it's actually repeated. It's almost like a copycat. That's the terminology that has been associated to it, that can take place too. And yet while I had thoughts of not wanting to be here, on a deep level, it was never going to happen. I just got to turn, something just flicked up on my screen. Excuse me for a sec. It was never going to happen because I was deeply strong-willed, resilient, and I just needed to find a way through. I didn't know how, but I just needed to find a way through. And so hope was the one thing that gave me something to, I guess, attach to give me something to keep moving forward. And so I needed to find meaning. I needed to find purpose. And the other part of that was, in reality, when I thought about those thoughts, knowing that I also had my other son here, it was never an option. I couldn't put him through any more pain that I knew I was experiencing, because if I did that, I knew the depth of pain that would be transferred from that one choice. And so he became my hope, as in the reason to keep going. And so I needed to find this reason. And whilst he did give me a glimmer of hope, after all, I remember reaching this moment, a crossroads moment, and I was at that point. I remember distinctly. I was like literally two choices, and I've always done this in my life. I always give myself two choices when I'm not sure which way to go, and I only ever have to make one choice. And so I was at this crossroads moment, and as I said, remember it distinctly. And I had these two choices that I put before me, and I said to myself, whichever comes first will be the path that I follow. And then lo and behold, a role popped up for me to a coordinator role in the suicide prevention space. And so I jumped at the opportunity. It was in the space where I thought that I could make a difference. It was obviously close to my heart, and that kept me on purpose for a few years. So I just want to share a quote with you from Brené Brown. When we run from grief because loss scares us, or we can run from grief because loss scares us, but yet our hearts reach towards grief because the broken parts want to mend. And the broken parts within me did want to mend. And so in that crossroads moment, I guess I was either one, going to run from the grief and not face it, or I was actually going to walk toward it. And so I thought about it and have reflected on this since. In life, we can run from our struggles because they're difficult. They're difficult to face. They're difficult to move through. We feel unsafe, and there's generally a lot of uncertainty. And that fuels our fear. And the fear creates those constant ruminating thoughts. So unless we change the narrative, which I did, we will remain in that constant cycle of the same thoughts coming and going, and that stuckness of anxiety. So I chose not to run from struggle. And I stood in the arena and I faced all that came my way with grief, the emotions, and it was literally emotion by emotion. It was exhausting, it was heart-wrenching, it was dense, it was crushing. Yet little by little I kept moving forward through the many highs and lows. Then moments of happiness began to appear. And I remember it was actually quite an insightful moment. There was this one day I actually felt happiness. It was for the first time after many months of just sorrow. And I realized at that time, like, whoa, this is what happiness feels like. And I could really distinctly see and feel happiness. And I had these moments of, oh my God, I shouldn't be happy. Why should I be happy in this moment? After all, this has just transpired. But that moment of happiness it was like chalk and cheese. It's like, whoa, it really showed me what sorrow looked like. And then I went, wow, I actually want more of this. And I realized then as time went by, the moment that I started to feel joy again, it was moments of like, wow, I love this feeling of joy. It was just so beautiful. Like I was just absorbed into it. And I was just like, oh my God, I want more of this. But then there was a part of me that was pulling back, thinking, I don't deserve this. After all, my son just died. And so then I went, no, I can't remain in this sorrow. I don't want this pain. I want joy. I want to feel joy again in my life. And that just moment by moment, because I was focused on feeling that and not focused on feeling the depths of sorrow, that I kept looking for more joy, more happiness. So that meant for me, the more I was out in nature, the more joy that nature gave me. That's why nature healing is a huge part of what I do with my work. And so this is how I began to learn how to embrace and live in each moment, to embrace all the emotions, the happy, the sad, and not run from struggle. Because what I now know is that when we move through grief and loss, all of those emotions have to be felt and let go of. They're not meant to be held onto. In the story of Why Me, we need to feel those emotions and let them go. Because once they're gone, we just get lighter and freer. And we keep then finding ways to make the best of our situation every single day. Because we have to make best the situation as we slowly come out of this dark night of the soul. And so going back to that philosophy, embracing our moments rather than focusing on what we don't want this pain, and worrying about that experience, and then worrying about our future and where we were going, that philosophy keeps us focused on the present moment. We're only meant to focus on the present moment and be in that moment. I honestly feel that's the only way forward, because when we're in grief, we can wish that it never happened, which keeps us stuck in the past. And the future is uncertain because we don't know where our future is. We have to rebuild who we are. We have to rebuild our lives, our new normal, especially when it comes to either grief and loss with relationships. You had a future that was planned with somebody else. Now they're not here. Perhaps they were the breadwinner. So that creates that fear of uncertainty. What am I going to do now? We have to try to just let that all go and just stay in the present moment and just one foot, moment by moment, to keep moving forward. focused on the present, not the past, nor the future. Because it doesn't matter how the future is meant to unfold, because it will just unfold, just like a rose blossoms petal by petal and opens up. The future opens up in time. But yes, I still yearned to hear, to feel, to touch my son. And that's when I was wishing for the different past and the different outcome. That's when I was not wanting as well, actually, to be in the present moment with the thoughts of what if I just end my life. And so with all the grief and the fear associated with the future, as I said, we don't know how to move forward. I had no control of those circumstances, so I could not control that. But the one thing I can control in grief is my narrative, my words, my thoughts, and my behavior. And learning how to become mindful, reframing my words, reframing my thoughts and my behaviors, because I started, as most people do, you find a void. I was drinking more than I would have ordinarily. It was out of character for me, but it was I was just looking for any way to numb the pain. So that's when I began to ask, what can I learn? And became my focus every day. What can I learn? What can I learn today? And so I was learning to trust the process called life. Death is inevitable. No, it's not meant to. Well, apparently, it's not meant to that our children die before us. And so I had to become a lover of my fate. I couldn't change it. I couldn't control it. I just had to face what I had before me. And so when I made that crossroads moment, not knowing that I wasn't focused on a spiritual path by any means, but what it did do, because I was seeking meaning and purpose, was it took me naturally on a spiritual exploration to learn, why are we here as humans if this is going to happen, because it seemed cruel. And so that journey to understand my existence in this lifetime and the existence of all life, and then the desire to understand where Brett was now in the afterlife. Where did he go? One moment he's here. Where has he gone? That was just such a driving force. I needed to understand. I wanted some science facts. I wanted any information that could help me understand and find meaning. So that became my most profound, oh my God, it's been growing ever since, but the most profound spiritual awakening that I have ever had. That to this day, I literally sit here in so much joy and happiness and pure love with my connection with spirit, that I sit so many times and think, oh my God, if I could just get people to get to this moment in their lifetime that is mirrored to mine, as in mirrored to the level of love and joy and happiness. It's like, wow, I've got to help people be able to do this because it's achievable. So this is what drives me on my work, to talk about death, dying, grief, and spirituality. Because whilst I'm here in this moment, when 1 year ago, I thought that was magical. And the year before that, I thought that was magical, but there's nothing like this moment now. I'm like, whoa, then where can I actually end up? And this is the so amazing thing about this journey that I'm so grateful for, because I'm reaching levels of peace and freedom and love just in every present moment, because I've learned to be such a mindful present person, mindful with my thoughts and words and behaviors towards myself and externally out into the world. And so by recognizing these challenges and difficulties, when we can embrace them, we reveal inner strengths that we don't often know we had. I honestly didn't know I had the strength that I've had. I can see how far I've come. And that leads to our personal growth. It leads to our wisdom learnings. It leads to deep compassion for ourselves and then humanity at large. And then often we will go out out to serve humanity through compassionate action, turning our challenge, our loss, our tragedy into something so profound to help others through their experience, because we've walked the path. That is so important, that divine wisdom, when someone has truly walked the path, means we can help humanity. That's why people love to contribute. Most people that love making a difference and are driven to make a difference in the world, has come from some form of tragedy. Look at Tony Robbins, his story. He's a great example of his childhood. He's turned his tragedy into something beautiful, and he's affecting millions of people. Many of us are just quiet little heroes in the background doing beautiful work in community, and this is what this journey does. This is why I'm so grateful for this spiritual awareness and connection, the deep love that I have in my heart on an everyday basis. Doesn't mean that my challenges don't still come. That's natural, every part of life. But what happens is that it's like the Buddha says, you are not disturbed by the experiences, because you have a level of skill where you can be present and always come back into that mindfulness of understanding, okay, what is this teaching me here? You hold compassion if it's someone's being perhaps hurtful towards you. You are able to sit undisturbed with compassion, a level of understanding to know that this person's hurting. I don't need to react. You see the higher perspective of our experiences. And so to conclude, I know we all have the power within to turn any tragic circumstance into something positive for the greater good of all. It all comes through choice. Reframing our words, reframing our narrative, being mindful and embracing our experience. And what I see too often for many who have been touched by death and loss, how that choice is not made. And I get it, because we feel like we're walking away from our loved ones, or forgetting our loved ones, or not honoring our loved ones by moving forward with life. I get it. But that's not how it's meant to be. Death, dying, grief, loss is not meant to stop us from living life. By unconsciously punishing ourselves from experiencing joy and happiness and love. Death is a natural part of life. And this is why I'm here, to help us all understand, to normalize this topic so that we can celebrate it. Because we are meant to find our way through our experiences, to learn, to grow and evolve, to keep on living. But we keep on living for the highest good of all, because we take the I out of our experience and we're focused on the we. What can we do? What can we do for others to lessen their suffering? That's a beautiful world where we serve with deep love, with deep forgiveness and compassion. So my experience of grief and loss gifted me a new life, and I now lead others to do the same with this shared experience. I offer those teachings on a very deep and profound level in my signature mentorship program, which is a bereavement healing program for 7 months, 1, 3, and 7 months. It's a journey of spiritual renewal and transformation, and it was created for those who, like me, desire to understand more about the existence of this life and the afterlife, and to find the purpose and meaning that you and how you can bring your purpose and meaning into contributing and making a difference in other people's lives. So the takeaway message is: be a lover of your fate. Adopt the mindset of accepting, embracing, and loving everything that happens in life, moment to moment, and learn how to focus what you can control. Reframe the narrative. Change your attitudes and reactions rather than focused on why me. And ask every day, what can I learn? Thereby transforming your obstacles into opportunities for growth, healing, and expansion. And what comes with that is peace and freedom. So one thing I've learned on my journey is that my grief and loss didn't have to be so devastating if I just understood a few other things differently. And if I was only able, well, I don't like to say if only, because it's focused on wanting to change the past. But if we can understand that it's a natural part of life, then we might be able to embrace it and be a lover of our fate. So be mindful, reframe your events, and surrender to the gift of life that is before you now. Namaste. Thank you for listening.